If you want to cut belly fat fast and lose 10 pounds in just 4 weeks, you can't afford to mess this up. Because in today's video, I'm going to show you exactly how to lose those 10 pounds in 4 weeks without wrecking your metabolism or your long-term progress. Let's jump into it right away. Okay, step number one, we're going to set up a slightly aggressive calorie deficit, and I'll get into specifics in just 1 minute. But before I say any more, make sure you watch the rest of the video, especially steps 2 and 4, because if you just do this and you skip out on what I'm going to tell you on the next part, you're going to set yourself up for long-term failure, and that's not what I want for you. Now that's out of the way, what I'm going to recommend for you in terms of setting up your slightly aggressive calorie deficit is take your body weight in pounds, and you're going to times it by 9. So what I typically recommend is, times by 10 to 11. But let's say, it's 4 weeks. You want to maybe look good for vacation, or you just want that good, positive kickstart for you. You can definitely increase the calorie deficit a little bit for at least the first month. And like I said, body weight in pounds. So let's say you weigh, 220 pounds. You times by 9. And I'm not going to do the math off the top of my head. And that's how many calories you're going to have every single day for 4 weeks. Now, I wouldn't recommend doing this more than 4 weeks because, like I said, especially if you don't do steps 2 and 4, which you should be doing, if any longer than that, there's just a better chance we get to a plateau faster, and then it's going to set yourself up for losing fat harder in the long run. So just do this for about 4 weeks until you drop the 10 pounds, and then I'll tell you on another video, so make sure to subscribe, in terms of how to increase your calories without gaining fat. That's step number one. Now, don't skip the rest of the video, especially steps 2 and 4. That'll lead us nicely to the next step now. Step number 2, now we're going to set up a high protein target for you. So remember, if you cut your calories for crazy, step number 1, but you don't do one of these crucial steps, which is right here, what's going to happen is you're going to lose a shitload of weight, but a lot of that weight's going to be muscle, and I promise you, it's not going to be the physique that you want, and it's going to make losing fat a lot harder in the long haul. So if you cut your calories aggressive, you got to make sure, I'll give you the number in 1 second, that you hit a high protein target. If you don't, it's just going to leave you frustrated. So that number that you want to hit ideally is, this is the absolute floor. So you don't want to go lower than this, but take your body weight in pounds and times it by 0.8. So let's say you weigh 200 pounds, you times by 0.8, that will give you about 160 grams of protein you want to have per day. And that's the absolute floor. If you go even higher, even better, because when our calories are low, we got to make sure we're protecting our muscle in the fat loss phase. And the only way to do that is protein. There's another thing coming up in the other part of the video, so stay tuned for that. But just make sure you are getting the protein targets, and think of it like this as an analogy. So let's say you cut your calories are crazy, but you didn't get enough protein. Think of it as like being in the sun all day long, like you're trying to improve your tan, but you forgot to put sunscreen on. You're gonna get burned, right? It's gonna hurt like crazy, and it's not fun. In the long haul, especially, it's the same thing when it comes to losing fat. So you guys got to make sure, yes, you can lower your calories a little bit more aggressively if you want a bit of a kickstart or get ready for your trip, whatever it might be. But if you do that, you got to make sure your protein is dialed in, and to have that, your floor number is body weight in pounds times 0.8. Make sure you don't mess it up. Now let's get to step number 3. Okay, step number 3, we're going to slightly lower our carbs. Now, before getting into specifics, just know this is a short-term boost, and I'm very pro carbs. I love carbs. It's great for strength. It's great for energy. It's great for longevity. But the truth is, when you take in carbohydrates, it has a lot of water attached to it, glycogen. So basically, the more carbs you take in, the more weight you're going to gain. But here's the key thing. Weight gain or weight loss isn't the same as fat gain or fat loss. The weight you lose when you, let's say, deplete your carbohydrates, maybe you're not taking as many carbs, a lot of that is coming from water weights. So this is why I'd only recommend doing this if, for 2 reasons, like I kind of said before, if you're going maybe to a trip in 4 weeks and you just want to look good on the beach, maybe lose that stubborn belly fat, that flabby kind of bloated look, or you just see some positive momentum to kickstart. And let's say you just look at the scale and the scale is like important for you. This can definitely help with that. But I'll give you a bit of a story because, like I said, it's not just, if it's not fat loss, it's weight loss, which is very different. I remember one of my clients, Sean, and I'll get into specifics here in just 1 minute. He was about 250, 255 back in the day. He went on keto, like really cut his carbohydrates. And he's like, Rich, this is the best thing ever because he dropped a lot of weights. But as soon as he had those carbohydrates back in his system later on, he would gain a lot of that weight back because the weight you drop is a lot of water weight. Just note that it's very different from overall fat loss. Now for specifics, I don't love giving ratios, macro ratios. I just find it very confusing. So here's what I'm going to tell you to do, exactly what to do. So you got your calorie number, you got your protein number. Those two things are absolute must if you want to, especially, drop 10 pounds in those 4 weeks. So you calculate your calorie number, you calculate your protein. Basically just shift your carbs and your fats to more high protein. Because if your calories are low and your proteins are high, you really don't have a lot of room to mess around, right? Like you're not gonna have the wiggle room to obviously eat a ton of carbs and pizza and cakes and stuff like that because the calories are low and you have to hit a certain protein threshold. So in terms of like, instead of worrying about stressing, about like a macro ratio, just shift some of the carbohydrates and the fats you typically have to more of the protein sources because the calories are low, the protein's high, you don't have a lot of room to mess it up. That's step 3 down. We got 2 more steps because if you want to lose 10 pounds in 4 weeks, you have to do it the right way. We're almost there. Okay, step number 4, I want you to strength train 4 times per week. Now, I'm not going to be too redundant because it's very similar to step number 2 with the protein, but just remember, when we're dropping weight and dropping fat, especially a bit aggressively, our number 1 goal is we have to maintain our muscle mass. And to do that, our protein's got to be high, and we got to strength train the right way, more than that 1 second. And I really want to shift your mindset from burning calories and doing a lot of HIIT, cardio, stuff like that, especially when our calories are cut pretty aggressively, to let nutrition take care of the fat loss and let the strength training, the weight training workouts take care of protecting your muscle for you, obviously coupled with protein. I'm not getting specifics in terms of the workouts that you should be doing. So if you want more info on that, I'll link a video at the end of this video here, or I'll just drop you the workouts that we do in the pinned comments below. You can grab them for free and take a look at exactly how to basically do it. You can plug and play it essentially into your workouts. So that's step number 4. I want you to strength train 4 times per week to make sure you are protecting your muscle at all costs. Okay, quick recap before I get into step number 5, because I want to make sure you have these points drilled into your mind. Remember, number 1, you're going to set up your slightly aggressive calorie deficit, body weight in pounds times roughly about 9. Number 2, your floor for protein is body weight in pounds times 0.8. That's your absolute floor. Number 3, this is optional, but you can slightly lower your carbs a little bit temporarily. It'll just help you with a short-term weight loss boost. Remember, different from fat loss. Step number 4, I talked about getting the strength training workouts in and why it's important for you. Now, step number 5, and this is where most guys mess it up because we go too high or too low, it is getting the right number of steps. And here's why we mess this up. When we go too low, we're obviously just not burning enough calories to kind of couple with our calorie deficit. And just remember, calories, or just say fat loss, is calories in versus calories out. So obviously calories in is how much food we eat. The less we eat, obviously the more fat we're going to burn, relatively speaking. There's obviously a certain threshold before plateaus happen. And the calories out is basically just your physical activity, your metabolism, all that sort of stuff, and how many calories you're burning. So to do that and increase the calories out, we can just simply increase our step count. But here's the thing. Most guys either go way too low or way too high. It's not good to go way too high, and I'll give you a rep range in just 1 minute here, because what happens is when you crush your calories like super low and you're trying to move like a shitload, like you're a ton, low doesn't make sense. Let's say you're trying to walk like 15, 20,000 steps per day, but you're only having like 1,800 calories or 1,600 calories, you're going to absolutely crash. Because what's going to happen here is whenever you are taking in fewer calories, it's basically telling your body to subconsciously move less. So maybe you've heard something called like NEAT, your non-exercise activity thermogenesis. So what happens is when you eat less, it's your body's basically telling you, okay, let's conserve our energy. And without you even knowing it, you're going to feel a lot more tired and sluggish. So if your calories are super low and you're trying to move like crazy every single day, you can do it maybe for a little bit, but believe me, you're going to absolutely crash in, I would even say the short term, even after a week. This is why I like to recommend, and it really obviously depends how many steps you're having per day now and how many calories you're having before, but typically speaking, a very rough estimate for a step range, I would say, is have anywhere between 8 to 12,000 steps per day. And I'm saying 12,000, like at the absolute max, like that's a lot. I'd even recommend 8 to 10,000 steps per day, especially at the lower calorie number. Now, if your calories are a little bit higher than 10.9, then you can increase the step count. What you don't want to do is like move more and like eat less. What you want to do, typically speaking, is eat more, move more, or eat less, move less. Does that make sense? Obviously, you want to tip it to the scale in terms of losing weight, losing fat, but that's how it wants to work. That's how it's supposed to work, I should say. If it's tipped, more towards one side where they eat more, I should say eat less, and then you're moving more, again, you're just going to burn out. It's not going to end well in the long term, and I don't want that for you. So like I said, the 5 steps there, I just went over them. If you do want the video in terms of more info to set up, your workouts, I'll link it at the end screen at the end of the video. And just grab it in the pinned comments below, and you'll basically see exactly how the workouts are set up. And you can just plug and play it and just copy it, basically. This is what we do in our stomach shred, and it's an absolute game changer for our members. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe if you found this video helpful. And we've got some awesome content coming up. I'm so excited to share. We'll talk to you soon.